Hello, everybody, and good morning. Thank you for joining me. Excuse me. My name is Michael. I totally lost track of verbiage there for a second. We are continuing in the reading of the Word of God this morning. Apologize about missing yesterday. My phone was not charged. I woke up and it was only at like 12%, which is not enough to do this. Excuse me. Yeah, still just barely waking up. But getting this done nonetheless. We are continuing again in the book of Judges. We are at chapter 16, which is where Delilah and Samson are brought together, which is the downfall or the fall of Samson, unfortunately. This poor dude, man, just constantly getting betrayed by the women in his life. But he was forewarned. So, this is the story of Samson, and the things that he did going against what he was supposed to be doing, and the punishments that he suffered for it. Oh, excuse me. Jeez Louise. Okay, so, oh man, all right. Did not notice how much time I have. I don't know why my phone keeps shrinking in data time, but I only got 16 and a half minutes total this morning worth of memory to use, so I'm not going to continue to yammer on. I'm going to just get back right into the reading. Hopefully we can get done with 16, 17, and 18 if time allots, but we shall see where we get to, as 16 and 17 are fairly short, but yeah, we'll see. All right, so chapter 16 of the book of Judges, Samson and Delilah, the fall of Samson. Samson went to Gaza, and there he saw a prostitute, and he went into her. The Gazites were told, Samson has come here, and they surrounded the place and set an ambush for him all night at the gate of the city. They kept quiet all night, saying, let us wait till the light of the morning, then we will kill him. But Samson lay till midnight, and at midnight he arose, and took hold of the doors of the gate of the city and the two posts, and pulled them up, bar and all, and put them up on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that is in the front of Hebron. After this he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, seduce him, and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to humble him, and we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound, that one could subdue you. Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now she had men lying in ambush in an inner chamber, and she had said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he snapped the bowstring as a thread of flax snaps when it touches the fire. So the secret of his strength was not known. Then Delilah said to Samson, behold, you have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you might be bound. And he said to her, if they bind me with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to them, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And the men lying in ambush were in the inner chamber, but he snapped the ropes off his arms like thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you might be bound. And he said to her, if you weave the 7 locks of my head with a web and fasten it tight with a pin, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his head and wove them into a web, and she made them tight with the pin and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled away the pin and the loom and the web. And she said to him, how can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times, and you have not told me where your great strength lies. And when she pressed him hard with her words day after day and urged him, his soul was vexed to death. And he told to her all his heart, and said to her, a razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. Then Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart. She sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up again, for he has told me all his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines come up to her and brought the money in their hands. She made him sleep on her knees, and she called a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to torment him, and his strength left. And she said, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he awoke from his sleep and said, I will go out as the other times and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. And the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza, and bound him with bronze shackles. And he ground at the mill in the prison, but the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. So just key references from here in regards to this. From verse 1, Gaza was the southernmost of the 5 principal Philistine cities. What incredible strength and endurance Samson had from verse 3. He carried the doorposts and bar that secured the doors for a distance of 38 miles, mostly uphill to Hebron. And these weren't like just some small doors that you'd see coming into your house. These were huge, massive, swinging, gated doors to a community that were like 12 feet or bigger, made of solid wood that probably weighed anywhere from a few hundred pounds up. And he carried this for 31 miles, or 38 miles. It's a lot. From verse 5, 1,100 pieces of silver, about 27.5 pounds of silver. Delilah was promised this amount from each of the 5 lords of the Philistines. Let's see here. From verse 13 and 14, since Samson was lying with his head in her lap, Delilah could easily begin to weave his hair into the material. And from verse 21, Samson was reduced to humiliating slave labor, doing a woman's work. Let's see, verse 26, the flat roof supported by wood pillars set on stone bases was made of logs laid from wall to wall. Oh, that's why. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. I'm halfway done. The time already. Oh no. Might only be able to do 16 to 17. So for continuing from verse 23, the death of Samson. Now the lords of the Philistines gathered to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to rejoice. And they said, our God has given Samson our enemy into our hand. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God has given our enemy into their hand, and the ravager of our country, who has killed many of us. And when their hearts were merry, they said, call Samson that he may entertain us. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he entertained them. They made him stand between the pillars. And Samson said to the young man who held him by the hand, let me fill the pillar on which the house rests, that I may lean against them. Now the house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there. On the roof were about 3,000 men and women, who looked on while Samson entertained. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, O Lord God, please remember me, and please strengthen me only this once. O God, that I may be avenged on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars on which the house rested, and he leaned his weight against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. And Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. Then he bowed with all his strength, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people who were in it. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those whom he had killed during his life. Then his brothers and all his family came down and took him and brought him in and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah, his father. He had judged Israel 20 years. Now I want to start 17, but this is the start of another section of Judges, where the death of Samson was the end bit of it. Let's see here. I only got 6.5 minutes. Do not feel like that is the right time. Should be able to do 17, 18, 19. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Sorry. Sometimes forget that I'm still recording and I get lost doing this. Ouch. So, we are not going to continue on to chapter 17 because it is the start of another section of this book. We only do have a few chapters left. You might actually end up finishing this tomorrow. 20, how far is 21? It would be a long video, but we could definitely finish this tomorrow. Or we could do 17, 18, and 19. Yeah, that's probably what we'll end up doing. 17, 18, and 19 tomorrow. And then 20 and 21 the following day. And then we'll be on to the book of Ruth, which will probably only be like 1 or 2 readings. And then Sam, we're flying through this. Look at that. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and stop here. At chapter 17, where we'll continue on tomorrow. Little couple of things. The flat roof obviously was supported by wooden pillars on the stone bases, which made of logs laid from wall to wall. So imagine this: you're coming into this great hall, and you got pillars all around you, and above you for the roof are just solid logs, super heavy solid logs. So you can imagine when Samson pulled and pushed the pillars down, all of those came toppling down on everybody. From verse 30 to 31, Samson had previously killed 1,030 Philistines. A study in contrasts. My apologies. A study in contrast, he exemplifies those who, though greatly endowed by God, fail to use his gifts to his greatest glory. Yet he is listed among the heroes of faith in Hebrews. So, we can see through the story of Samson, who's given great power, was called to do great things, and he did do great things, but he had stumbled and fallen quite a bit along the way, feeling susceptibility to the women that were in his life. Poor Samson, especially with Delilah at the end, man. Like, she had to have been something of some kind of beauty, and the words that she spoke had to have been intoxicating, because 3 different times she asked him, "How do I make you weaker?" And he gave her 3 different lies, and those 3 different lies came to fruition from the Philistine lords trying to do this to him, and he breaks free. Like, why wouldn't you put 2 and 2 together, man? The man was just blinded by whatever he felt for Delilah. Poor guy. But in all things that the devil does for bad, God works around for good. So even with Samson losing his eyes, losing his strength, having his hair cut so that his power is removed from him, God was able to be glorified through Samson in the defeat of the Philistine lords, taking down that entire house. So just always remember, whatever bad things happen to us and are currently happening to us, God's working a plan through it. You just need to stay focused, lean on him, stay focused on him, give it all over to him, and he's going to get you through this storm. And you'll find out that some of that bad that you were put through and tempted through, God doesn't, let me correct that, you weren't tempted to, that you were tested through. God doesn't send temptations. That's the devil's work. God sends tests to strengthen us, to give our relationship strengthened with Him. So whenever God's testing you, always know that there's something coming around to it for good. Even when the devil does his temptations, God's intending for it to be used for good. He can turn everything into good. You just have to be open and let Him. But I do thank you. I'm on my last minute here. So do thank you very much. Hope you guys all enjoy the video as much as I enjoyed reading them. Excuse me. A lot of great information here. As always, opportunity always to accept Christ if you haven't at this point in time. I don't know what you're waiting for, but that is your own personal choice. He stands there at the door knocking. You just simply have to acknowledge that you're a sinner and you're needing saving grace. You believe in His life, His death, His resurrection was done to atone for the sins of you and me and everyone out there. He stands at the door stands at the door knocking, waiting for you to answer, while the devil slides in the back window trying to destroy everything. So open the door. Open the door. Open the door. So much better when you open the door. Trust me. It is. But I love you. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. God bless you all. I have like 10 seconds. Peace out and see you next time.